Here we go.
Here's Johnny.
I'm Batman.
You talking to me?
Bond.
My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Don't say that!
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Frack you later, fucking puss.
Yeah, baby!
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a...
We're not in Kansas anymore.
He's looking at you, kid.
Good morning, Vietnam!
Welcome, everyone, to essentially the first episode of the Moment After podcast. I say it's the first and not the fifth because we're starting over entirely here at DigiFox Studios. Each week, it's going to be myself, Chris, and Klein, and we're going to review a new movie. Sometimes, though, there's not going to be anything interesting out. So those weeks, we'll just go ahead and do something old school, something a little bit random. But definitely, we're going to be doing Mystery Men, because that movie is phenomenal.
Movie is phenomenal.
But you should still listen to the review, because that's not going to be my final opinion. This is a spoiler-free review of Christopher Robin. All right, so Chris, tell us about the director.
Well, the director was, I never even heard of this guy before. His name was Mark Forster.
Right.
He directed World War Z, Quantum of Solace, Finding Neverland, The Kite Runner. I've seen The Kite Runner, Machine Gun Preacher. Have you seen that at all? Have you seen any one of these movies? World War Z?
I saw World War Z. I thought it was okay. I thought it was very fine. Very middle of the road.
Right before we went to go see this movie, I looked at the list over here and it had me kind of nervous because I wasn't a huge fan of World War Z. Quantum of Solace, I hated. Absolutely the worst.
Wait, did he direct Stranger Than Fiction?
Yeah, he did. Direct Stranger Than Fiction.
That movie blows.
Finding Neverland. Have you seen that one with Johnny Depp?
That movie's good.
See, now that's a good movie. So it had me worried. I had no clue whether he batted a couple and went perfect. Some other ones were a complete miss. So I don't know, man. But
everybody has a bad day at some point, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes it's just about a year of a bad day, though, when you're making a movie.
And in this review, I would say he completely knocked it out of the park, but we'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah. We'll save that for the end. Yep. But speaking of knocked it out of the park, the composer for this movie, his name was John Bryan, right? Mm. He's done a bunch of stuff. He's done a lot of stuff. He's got 38 credits dating back to like 1996. It's crazy.
That's insane. What, can you name any?
Oh, yeah. He did stuff like Paranorman. He did Lady Bird a couple years. Was that last year?
Lady Bird, yeah.
Yeah, that was last year. Mm-hmm. People love that movie.
Everyone likes that movie. I heard so much about it. Did it win the Academy Award last year? Because it was nominated. I don't know if it won. There was the Guillermo del Toro movie. This is the one who
That's
won.
right. The Shape of Water.
Shape of Water. Yep.
Surprisingly enough, he did the music for 2 stand-up specials for John Mulaney.
That is great.
He did Kid Gorgeous and The Comeback Kid.
John Mulaney is great.
He's so funny.
So what you're saying is this guy has the capacity to make a pretty good score, huh?
He really does. Because the one credit that he had, aside from Christopher Robin, that really impressed me was The Blue Umbrella. Yes, Klein, The Blue Umbrella. I hated that video, but the music in it really was very good.
Yeah.
So you got to give it to him. But this, Christopher Robin, man, he did a good job with this soundtrack.
He really did. The Winnie the Pooh, just, the cartoon, the soundtrack to it is so iconic.
It really is.
It really is. The Winnie the Pooh. I mean, that gets you right off the back. The Tigger song, and that's in here, by the way, a couple of times, and it was fantastic every time it came about. But yeah, the actual...
I was really happy to hear that.
Right. And the songs are great, but how the score itself has to nail it too. And I think that the whole movie was fantastic.
I did too, and especially for the arc that this movie takes, because it's not a happy movie.
No.
Like, it's really not.
It gets pretty dark in there.
It's actually quite sad. Like, this is definitely the saddest Winnie the Pooh movie I've ever seen.
You know what this kind of reminded me of? It kind of reminded me of Steven Spielberg's Hook.
Oh, yeah.
It had tons of shades in there. You had Robin Williams in the first one, who was Peter Pan, and he was. There was some dark stuff in there too. He was completely abandoning his kids. Big guy into his work, forgetting his family. He was a bit of an alcoholic. Not saying in this movie it was, but they had shades of it in there, and I kind of like that.
Yeah, me too, because you got to think, you're like, watching all the old Winnie the Pooh shows and all that, you're like, man, I hope Christopher stays the same. And you don't even think that you think that until you realize, yeah, he's very different now. And it's not spoilers because that's all in the trailers. The way this movie starts, it's really interesting because Disney has continued to do this with all of their movies for as long as I can remember. Where they have the logo, right? The
castle.
Cinderella's castle. And then they change it to fit the style of the movie, like with Incredibles.
Yeah.
It was all like Art Deco. It looked very flat. It was very cool looking.
And you got to give it to Disney. Like, I mean, that doing that, it's something so small, but it really, if you talk to a lot of people like that, they love those intros.
Oh man, they're so good.
I've talked to people who, going back to the first Star Wars and stuff like that, when you had the Lucasfilm, and then people, that Fox logo is the stupidest intro, but that was completely iconic with when you turned on a Star Wars movie, that was the first thing that you did. So
that dun dun,
yep,
dun dun,
yep, and then you would see the Lucasfilm kind of shine on there, and you don't see that anymore. But it's so nice with the Disney castle how they do something different almost for every movie.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can't remember one where they haven't done something different. And even if they keep the castle the same, they're looking at it from a different angle. I just got that. That's why Maleficent is from the side. I feel very stupid. But I don't like that movie, so I didn't give that movie much thought.
Let's not talk about that. We're going to have to review number 2 next year, right? Is the one's next?
Yeah, it's very upsetting. But this one, when it starts, it looks like an A.A. Milne book of Winnie the Pooh. And it's adorable.
I like how the beginning of the movie, they're going through the credits and you have this pretty much
montage.
Yeah, and it's really cool because they play from, when he's young to when he's getting old, and you see what he's going through with these pages. So they'll show a scene and they'll have something really neat, and then they'll sketch it out for you. And that's cool because they have the little writing up there. It kind of explains what happened in between certain periods, so you can really get what's going on.
And, not to get into the negatives too quickly, but like that was one thing I wished it kind of stuck on just a little bit longer, because I didn't realize that that's what was happening right off the bat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's another thing I think with this movie that we're going to be talking about, but I think it's definitely has rewatch value for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I mean, just like what you said, I think you're going to be going back and reading those what was going on and stuff like that. So the repeat value on this is going to be great, I think.
Right. And it's visual storytelling. Even though there are some words there, it's not much. Like one of them is like Christopher Robin gets very bad news. And that's it. But you know what happened. Mm-hmm. You know what happened.
And some stuff happened. Christopher Robin's gone through some crazy stuff.
That poor boy's life.
No, but like I said, this is a spoiler-free podcast, bros.
Exactly. Let's get into the cast. Let's get into Christopher Robin. It's Ewan McGregor.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with
Obi-Wan
that.
Kenobi.
You can't go wrong with Ewan McGregor. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, what's really funny about this movie is that I haven't seen the trailer until me and you went last weekend. And we went to go see Fallout, Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
I didn't see a trailer to this movie until last weekend. I knew the movie was coming out. I didn't know when it was coming out. So this was my first time seeing it, and Ewan McGregor was awesome.
He
was
perfect.
an awesome Christopher Robin. I mean, he's not a kid or anything like that, but the scenes of joy when he kind of goes back to being Christopher Robin towards the end of the movie is great.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
He was pulled off that being a little kid again. Awesome.
yeah, it really had that sense of wonder. And actually getting back to the soundtrack, to hear it go from like that real dark and depressing sound, but it still had a little bit of magic there, and then full-blown wonder when you make that turn. Man, it was great.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing about this movie. I mean, it's really right off the bat, you know. I mean, well, you have that little bit of an intro where it's like classic Winnie the Pooh. You know, you got the characters and they're all hanging out, and they're talking, and what's, you know, they're doing something very special for Christopher Robin.
Of all the scenes to start with,
Yeah, gives
Like,
you the feels right off the bat.
oh man,
It leads from it gives you the feels right off the bat, like you said, and then it throws Christopher Robin, his life. You're like, wow, this man has gone through some insane stuff. And like I said, like you were saying with the score, it's a bit dreary going in. And that's what kind of scared me a little bit. Going into this, I was like, I hope they really don't darken this down.
it was super dreary.
Yeah.
For more than half the
A
movie.
Disney Winnie the Pooh movie starting off the way it did, let's just say there's a war. So it's crazy stuff.
See, when the movie started, I was actually a little bit worried they were going to take it along the lines of like Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Because Alice in Wonderland, the original, is so bright and vibrant and funny and fun. And so is Winnie the Pooh. And then it opens and it's dreary, and you're like, man, this looks like Alice in Wonderland. There's even a shot that it's almost ripped right out of that when they're waiting for Alice.
Oh, yeah. But and you know that, you know, that's not to discourage and say that the movie isn't good or anything like that. Like, it's not
by no
bad.
means.
Because the payoff by the end of the movie, the colors pick up, it goes right back to the old Winnie the Pooh by
Absolutely.
the end of the movie. And it's not a slugfest. It's not like you have to, you know, deal with this dreary movie the whole time and you're feeling like, oh my gosh, when are we going to get there? No, it's a the journey is well worth it. And I feel like they needed to tell the story from the beginning to give you the great feels at the end of the movie.
Don't get us wrong. It's a sad movie at first, but there are a lot of jokes. It is really funny. It is one of the funnier Winnie the Pooh movies, which is weird to say after saying it's so dreary.
Well, if it means...
But it's both.
Right. If it means anything, I think the funniest character in the movie, which kind of surprised me, was Eeyore. I mean, Winnie the Pooh had his moments, but Eeyore kind of, it goes perfectly into that theme of, you know, how we were just saying, it's a very dark movie and Eeyore has always been kind of negative.
Right.
His jokes, dude, he was just hilarious. He
really was.
He had your mother dying. And the things he was saying were so dark and dreary. You're like, man, this is the things he's saying are really dark, but they're hilarious. They're obviously very light toned.
Right. And he's played by Brad Garrett. Is there a more perfect person to play Eeyore than Brad Garrett?
No, I don't think so. I mean, he nailed it.
I don't think so either.
No. And that's it. And let's go to Winnie the Pooh then.
Okay.
Because Winnie the Pooh is...
He is the only voice actor who has come back from any of the other movies, except maybe Brad Garrett. I think Brad Garrett may have been in the 2011 Winnie the Pooh movie. I will know later tonight, though, if he was. I don't know now. But everybody else is different. For Piglet, you had Nick Mohammed. For Rabbit, you had the 12th Doctor, freaking Peter Capaldi. And he wasn't in the movie for very long, but he was great when he was there. He was a really good rabbit.
Yeah, he played the grumpy guy really well.
Exactly. I mean, that's what he does,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Sophie Okonato was Kanga, Sarah Sheen played Roo, and Toby Jones played Owl. And it's interesting because, like I said, none of them were returning cast except for the legendary Jim Cummings.
I mean, you can imagine the amount of pressure that they had
Oh,
coming
yeah.
into these iconic roles. And I feel like every one of them did a good job. I mean, some of them, Kanga and Roo and Owl. And yeah, I mean, they're not main figureheads in the movie, but they were very good.
Right, yeah, they picked great characters for who they were when they needed them. The person that I was shocked by was Piglet because of everybody.
Yeah.
Pooh, Tigger, all of them. I always thought that aside from Pooh and Tigger, Piglet had the most recognizable voice.
Yeah.
You know, that,
Yeah.
oh, dear.
Yeah, yeah.
And for Nick Mohammed to come in here and just, he crushed it.
Yeah.
He
did a good
was
job.
Piglet.
Yeah, he did. I mean, what's really cool, I think, is as a whole, they, the other characters, how we said they didn't have a lot of time. Every character in here, though, does have a moment. I think it gives each character, for the most part, has a nice moment where it's just them or something like that, and they say something very nostalgic. So
Yeah.
no one feels like they're completely left out, even though some have a little less screen time than others. But yeah, Piglet was... oh my gosh, that scene with Pooh, and he was talking to Piglet, and he just reaches his hand out and he's like, Piglet, you're coming with us. And I was
We
like,
need you.
oh man. The scene where Christopher Robin meets Piglet as well. We're not going to spoil that, but that was that whole thing was great. Was absolutely great. Yeah.
But the reason that like Kanga and Roo and Owl and Rabbit don't have a whole lot of screen time is because they're focusing on Christopher Robin and his family back in London. I think that's really cool. I like seeing characters outside of their natural habitat, and it actually led to some really funny jokes.
Yeah, that was very weird because, like I said, when I saw the trailer last week, I saw the thumbnails for the YouTube videos and stuff like that. I just never clicked on them. I just didn't know that the movie was actually right around the corner. Not doing my job right. But in any case, it was weird seeing Winnie the Pooh in London talking, and I'm like, how are they going to play this off? Are people going to be able to see it? Are they going to go this route where it's just in Christopher Robin's head? And he's just a complete insane person. I will say the way they play it off in the movie is the best way they could play it off. It was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. Bronte Carmichael plays Madeline Robin in this movie, and she was freaking adorable, man. Mm-hmm. She
really
was. Why didn't I have that in my pocket for for the stupid Emperor's New Groove show?
Yeah, now that we're looking back on this casting, she would have been absolutely perfect.
She did such a good... I mean, she's super white and British, but she would have done a good job.
Yeah, no, she did a good job. And speaking of her, I mean, the mom was pretty good too.
Hayley Atwell.
Yep, there she goes.
She played Evelyn. When the family needs to show emotion, they all show up. They all show up, man. Hayley Atwell, she's a great actress anyway. She was really good in this movie.
Right.
So this is now, I believe, the fifth movie in these live-action Disney movies that are coming out that are fairly well-received.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, there's a couple that, Maleficent. And you're forgetting the Alice in Wonderland movies, too.
Oh, yeah.
That's another thing.
Just freaking brought up.
But that was another one where the first one comes out and it makes $1 billion. And the second movie came out completely bombed.
Right.
With Maleficent, I even went to go see it, and I was really excited to go see that movie. And I left the theater not exactly happy with their interpretation of, but it made over $1 billion. So I mean,
No, it didn't.
Yes, it didn't it?
No.
Yes,
Dude, Maleficent is not in the $1 billion club.
Dude, you're insane.
You're out. You're no way.
Yeah, Maleficent box office.
It got high.
Okay. So it's showing me here that it's $758 million. So
Which is way more than that movie should have made.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
God bless those 3D movie showings.
Yeah. So I mean, to say that Disney has had some success, there were some people that too felt kind of weird with the Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
Just nitpicking certain things here and there.
I really feel like that's what it was. It was nitpicking, and you can nitpick a movie to death. Mm-hmm. I thought it was really good.
And seeing this, and again, this is my first time seeing it, so like I got to see it a couple more times, but I think this one might be the best out of all the live action movies that they've come out with so far.
I would agree with you. I definitely think that this movie is going to get the least amount of division.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because even though it was such a different tone for a Winnie the Pooh movie, it was still a Winnie the Pooh movie where, I mean, I really liked Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
I liked Alice in Wonderland a lot, the first one. But I understand why people would hate that movie.
Yeah.
It is very different than the original or the book even.
And the thing we're talking about this movie, the things that make people, I mean, it's the dark parts of it have to do with growing up and having a family and getting involved with jobs and a life and, you know, you forget how it's like to be a kid. So the themes in this movie, it's not so dark and dreary and you just want to kill yourself.
Exactly.
It's real life, you know, which is why at the end or why throughout the movie you have the feels, because there are moments where you're like, man, that brought me back to my childhood, you know, like it just really pulls you out and says, you know, it really pushes the try to feel like a kid again.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what Disney movies are all about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, you have that classic quote from Disney of, we don't make children's films. We make films for children and the children in all of us. And they freaking nailed it, man.
And I think what's great about it too is it's not stuck to a trying to compete with an already fantastic movie. You're not going to make a better version of Beauty and the Beast. I'm sorry, of the animated movie. You're not gonna do it. So with the freedom that you have to kind of tell the story that you kind of want to tell, I think it obviously completely better the movie.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of which, the graphics and the visuals in this movie were insane.
Yeah.
Because we've always been told Pooh Bear is a stuffed animal.
Right.
Obviously, he's never looked like a stuffed animal aside from the seams running down his middle that always explodes, which is adorable and hilarious. But in this, it's a bloody teddy bear.
Oh, yeah. It looks
They're all
exactly
teddy bears.
like a teddy except, and this is something that I was watching. I maybe need to watch it again, but I was looking at Rabbit and I'm looking at Owl. And they looked like they were going for real live animals. Like, you know, obviously they're CGI because they talk and whatnot, but there were no like seams or kind of stitches on them or anything like that, which was kind of weird.
Well, I think that's got to do with when Christopher Robin was playing with them as a child in his room. He had I believe it was a stone rabbit.
Yeah.
And
he had all the
no, because they weren't all stuffed.
Are you sure about that? Because I mean, Winnie the Pooh was stuffed.
Right, Winnie the Pooh was stuffed. But I'm pretty sure Rabbit and Owl were not stuffed animals. They were different. And I don't remember if they were stone or what they were, but I'm pretty sure that those two were not stuffed animals. Yeah. Later on, I think they might have became them, but I remember correctly, in the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh, Owl and Rabbit are different. Okay. And if they are...
Then it looks
perfect.
Then it's great. Obviously,
but otherwise,
I don't know my Winnie the Pooh history here, so I don't want anyone to attack me on this. But if that's the case and they actually are real, you can tell the difference.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Between Winnie the Pooh and the rabbit, which I mean, the Winnie the Pooh looks more alive than Henry Cavill's non-mustache. It was. I mean, it was really hard to, when they were, you know, in the same shot together with Ewan McGregor and they had to interact and he had to pick them up. It almost looked real, almost kind of freaky sometimes.
Oh, yeah. And you know what's weird is this movie has a lot of the same story beats as a movie that came out a couple years ago, The Smurfs. And that movie sucked.
Never saw The Smurfs.
That movie was bad. Like the animation, like the movement of the characters was fine, but they looked weird. In live action. I was terrified that that's what this was going to be like. Once I saw the trailer, though, I kind of eased up off that worry. After seeing the movie, dude, now if someone says, hey, we're going to do a live action and animation movie, I'd be like, okay. Or I at least have proof that it's going to be good, or it can be good anyway.
Yeah, no, like I said, they knocked it completely out of the park. I mean, Eeyore looked great. Tigger, I mean, they toned down his colors quite a bit. I mean, he doesn't have that bright orange and bright black.
But I think that was because Christopher Robin was growing up as well. Because Tigger, a lot of the black was gone and it was just white. He looked almost like an old man.
He did. But I mean, it looked great. I mean, you got nothing to critique about it. They all look fantastic.
They did, and some of the shots that they got, especially in the 100 Acre Wood, phenomenal. And I'm a big fan of fog. Like, I love when it's foggy, right?
Yeah.
So when it was foggy in the 100 Acre Wood, oh man, it was a little creepy, but I loved it. I would print some of these and put them on my wall.
One thing I loved about them going into the 100 Acre Woods was because I was kind of worried. I'm like, are they going to do this thing where they go like Alice in Wonderland? You go from a live set and all this thing, real world, and you fall into a green screen, you know, where everything is completely, you know, it's CGI. Every step you take is fake. They didn't do that with this movie.
Right.
And they did a good job with the fog, you know, early on in the movie, making it feel like the 100 Acre Woods.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Matter of fact, if you walked in late into this movie, just to your point, if you walked in late to this movie and you didn't know they were in the 100 Acre Woods, you wouldn't be able to tell, oh, this is 100% the 100 Acre Wood.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting and good for the movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they did have that little tree, right? I mean, that's how you can kind of tell when him and Christopher Robin's you know, their little spot.
Right. No, they had the landmarks and stuff, but what I'm saying is it didn't look, like you said, it didn't look animated, it didn't look CGI, it didn't look fake. It looked like they were walking in the woods.
And I'm happy that that's the direction that they went.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if you noticed this or not, but I liked that they gave Winnie the Pooh a balloon partway through the movie, because without it, he would be completely lost. It is the only way you as the audience member can find Pooh Bear and know where he is.
Yep.
And I thought that was really cool. I thought, like, if you're going to film it this way, that was perfect. That was a good workaround.
The movie gives you the feels, man. I mean, you watch this movie and the things he says has you dying laughing. I mean, pretty much everybody has you cracking up in this movie.
All right. So, Chris, I mean, this movie, it's not perfect,
right?
Obviously.
Yeah.
What is something that you didn't like about the movie?
I don't know, man. It's kind of hard not to.
It's hard.
It's tough, man. I'm literally, I mean, trying to think about something. I was thinking about that on the way here, what I could say negative about it. I really don't know what negative. I mean, the villain, I guess you can kind of say.
Yeah. There wasn't really a villain. I mean, there was, but there wasn't.
Yeah. This movie doesn't have like a 100% clear-cut villain.
I'm with you, though, because the villain to me, while he wasn't really a villain per se, he was so over the top.
He was just a bit too much. He felt like he was just coming out of Broadway and just was going nuts.
Which is weird because I like the guy who plays him.
Yeah.
I've seen him be
and
kind of a villain and a good guy at the same time, and he can blend it very well.
They tried
and I
really
don't know
hard.
Why he didn't.
They tried really hard right off the bat to sell him as the bad guy. You know, like he was just your corporate douchebag.
Exactly.
And yeah, like you said, he was kind of over the top. The stuff he was doing was comical.
Yeah.
Although there were some things that he did, and there were scenes in there that was funny. So, I mean,
sure, absolutely.
You know, so I mean, it's hard to kind of have like a main villain, but you know, he filled the role okay. But if there was a negative, I would probably say, yeah, you're right. He was a bit too much.
Yeah, just a bit too much, and that's all I can really say bad about it.
It's hard, man. It's hard. This movie surprised me because I didn't know what to expect. Like I said, with all the movies that this guy directed, I was like, and it's not to say that his movies were bad. I just, a couple of the ones I saw, they left me leaving the theater kind of going, okay, well, you know, it was good. And that's about it.
Right.
And that's not enough for Pooh. You got
No, it is not. Pooh deserves better.
You need a lot better for Pooh. So it surprised me, and like I said, it could be that my expectations for this movie were low. But then again, you've known about this movie, you know, this whole time. You've been looking forward to seeing this. I've been looking forward to seeing this since a week ago. So
right.
I mean, I feel like it's knocked out of the park for both of us.
Oh, absolutely, it has. Of the 7 or 8 live action Disney movies, I think this one has been the most well executed.
Right.
and it's also been my favorite. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to mention too, it's actually 100 minutes long.
Yeah.
And I feel like I should bring that up because the 2011 Pooh Bear movie, it was 60 minutes.
Yeah.
It was like a crime to go see this movie in theaters because it wasn't very long at all. Yeah. But this movie, it's actually a full-length movie.
Yeah. And it was good. And I think it was right around a good time. I mean,
I was never bored in it.
No, and that's the thing. There's no dull moments in this movie. While there is some darker, like I said, there is some darker scenes. There's some heavier subjects touched on. There is nothing dull about almost any scene in this movie.
Right.
Everything was here's this scene, and you get the feels, and then the next scene, and then here's some more feels. You know, I mean, it's just it could be a big nostalgia thing, but I mean, the movie. The whole pace-wise, you know, score, the cast, the voice acting, the way it looked. I mean, it's really hard to nitpick this movie. I mean, you got to really hate Pooh Bear and what they're doing.
Happiness.
Yeah, happiness. You got to really hate what they're doing with, you know, I don't know. I don't know what your nitpick would be because it's hard for me to find one.
Right. All right. So for me, I'd say run out and see this movie.
Okay.
Give it some love. They did a really good job with this movie. If you love Pooh Bear and you've been watching him your entire life, I have.
Yeah.
I grew up watching The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, the cartoon show, the Disney afternoon show, and then I also watched all the old movies.
Yeah.
I love Winnie the Pooh. Seeing this, it was great. It felt just like Pooh Bear.
Yeah.
It felt just like Pooh Bear should.
Yeah. And, you know, for me not being the biggest Pooh Bear fan, because, you know, I haven't seen all the movies. I saw the original. I remember seeing some of the cartoons, you know, TV shows, none that I can really remember the episodes on. But I love the character. I love the characters around him. So, you know, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, too. I think that people who haven't grown up on Pooh and don't love Pooh a lot are still going to really like this movie because you can really put yourself into this movie.
Yeah.
Regardless of you're a guy, a girl, you're grown up, you're young, you can put yourself into this movie somewhere. And I think they just killed it.
It has you laughing throughout the whole movie, just the little stuff. And that's another, getting to Ewan McGregor. I mean, I don't know if what he's talking to, because I mean, I imagine it's like completely blank, but the chemistry between Ewan McGregor and the animals, you were like, good. Okay, this is an older Christopher Robin for sure. It didn't feel like he was just talking to nothing. He had to really pull out some of his acting chops to get across. You know, I mean, I can imagine how hard it is as an actor to be talking almost probably nothing, or a green screen, or a weird puppet.
You know what the thing is? I don't think it was any of that because obviously their mouths were CGI'd. Mm-hmm. I think they were just stuffed animals.
They might have.
I think they were just stuffed animals that they put on the set and let it go.
It's just the real Disney magic that they're using.
Yeah, kind of. And that's it for the review. So the way we're going to rate these movies from now on is run out and see it. You got to see it in theaters. The next rating is a matinee. You know, see it when you want. It's not bad. If you see it in theaters, you'll be happy with it. The third one is stream it. Wait till it comes out. You know, don't put too much effort into it. It's not necessary. And then the last one is don't even bother with it. Don't even worry about it. Movie sucks.
So what are you saying it is, Bryce? What's your review?
Man, run out and see it.
Absolutely.
Really.
You got to be heartless not to want to see this movie.
Exactly. You're going to like it.
You will like it.
Oh, because I loved it, man. I really did.
Kind of hard not to continue giving. I can continue talking about this for a long time. So looking forward to talking spoilers with you.
Me too, buddy. Now, typically, this is where we would do a spoilers section. But just this movie being what it is, aside from like a play-by-play of the movie, there's really nothing to talk about as far as spoilers go. So that's going to do it for tonight. Go out and see some movies. Good night.